It's no secret that my HO and OO Thomas collection is pretty extensive, and with new ideas and new releases, it only ever seems to get bigger, and at some point it gets pretty hard to keep track of everything. So today I thought it'd be fun to compile every locomotive that I have into one single video, and try to help myself and you guys keep track of everything that's actually in it. Now keep in mind, models that I haven't shown off yet or that are still in development will not be shown, and other Thomas models that are not HO or OO will not be included. So unfortunately my Tomics trains will have to sit this one out. But even still, there still is a lot to show, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting off with the most essential, my Thomas models. In Bachmann's case, I have two, being the Whistle and Sound Thomas that you see in front, and the LBSC Thomas as well. Both have not only been weathered, but also feature 3D printed faces that came directly from Marvin Jerry, and I frequently switch the faces between the models. I also have a Bachmann Celebration Thomas on the wall, but I haven't opened that and likely never will. So that sums up those three. In terms of Hornby Thomases, I have two, being their last version of Thomas, which I also got from Marvin Jerry, as well as my personal favorite, the Great Discovery Thomas. So far I haven't really done much with these two, and I'm not really sure if I will, seeing as they get harder and harder to find. But they're both models I'm very happy to have in my collection. Next up we have Percy, of which I have three. One what I call Standard Percy, a custom Jack Frost version of Percy, and just a standard Hornby Percy. The Bachmann models have clearly been the most modified, with the Standard Percy featuring a Hornby face open cab and weathering, and the Jack Frost Percy being a Jack Frost Percy, but all three serve the railway well and I'm very proud of them. Next up we have Hornby James, which like the other Hornby models hasn't really been modified much, but he's one of their first and older models, and for being that he's always performed very well. I was so excited to finally get this model, and the sentiment very much still stands. Next, I think it's only right we mention 2308, since he's basically my own version of James, and is one of the newest additions to the fleet, and because of that I haven't really had much time to do much with him. But as he stands, he currently features new and very realistic front couplings, and will soon sport not only new faces but a bunch of other small details as well, and I plan to make a video on just him whenever he's complete. Next up we have Bachmann Duck, which features an added figure, added weathering, and a front lamp. This model is special to me since it's one of the first few that I was really proud of, and overall I still very much am, even despite my past actions. Next up we have Oliver, of which I have two, both Bachmann models, but one being a standard slightly weathered one, and the other being a scrapped or escape variant. The scrap model of Oliver at this point is pretty old, but one I'm very much still proud of. Maybe one day I'll go back and make another scrap variant, and try out some of the newer skills that I've picked up recently. Speaking of scrap, here we have a static model of a city class that was scrapped by Halden Yard, and subsequently picked up by me. There's not really much to say about this guy. He and his tender just make tremendous well wagon pieces and set pieces, and that's really all I use him for, but at least it's technically show accurate. Next up we have Bachmann Edward, which there's not really much to, featuring very slight weathering and a coat of matte clear, but overall was a model that was very hard to get my hands on, so I'm very proud that he's finally in my collection too. Next up we have Bachmann Mavis, which features red lipstick, weathering, and a coat of matte clear. A lot like Edward, there's not really much to this model, but it's still a model that I'm quite proud of. And from what I can recall, I've never had a problem with my Bachmann Mavis, so performance-wise this model has definitely been one of the best. Here we have the Railway Series Murdering Diesel, or my take on it at least, and he actually recently went through a pretty significant change, in that I added a face to his front part too. So now he's kinda like a Mighty Mac or Coldy Fell engine, but at the end of the day it's really just for fun. I just think it's funny for him to have a face on either end, and now he does. Here we have one of my first original characters, being Croven, and I actually have some good news about this guy. Since the last time you guys saw him, he has actually been promoted, and is now my official station pilot. And because of this and for fun, I would put little station adverts on his backside, all being made from real stamped metal. So overall he's a quite classy engine, and a quite heavy one too. Here we have Bachmann Rosie, which features very light weathering and an added front lamp, but that's really as far as I've gotten with her at this point. But surprisingly, as a model, she's probably one of my strongest, at least from my Bachmann range, so I still use her quite frequently. Next up is my custom lady, which hasn't really changed since the last time you guys saw her, but I still have the plans I did have for her, which is to either power her chassis or to get her a wagon which is powered to push her around, so hopefully I'll have an update on that soon. Next up we have a Bachmann Henry, which features a face from Jaden 247, as well as an added front lamp and weathering. Like the others, overall pretty basic, but the new face definitely helps tie it together. Here is my Mallard Class, or as some of you all know him, Nigel. He's just without his face at the moment. And honestly guys, I've grown to hate this model. Unfortunately, his body shell does not like to stay on his chassis at all. And regardless how many times I've tried to replace the screw, it always is stripped out. And I don't run this model on tight curves, so I really don't know what caused this or why it does this, but it is what it is. Gordon's right, just don't trust A4s. Here we have a currently nameless Caledonian Railway pug, who was briefly seen in the 2308 short film. This guy was also a present from Marvin Jerry. I would just add his face and use him for background shots, and that's likely how he'll remain until I get a better idea for him. But expect to see more of this guy. I'm sure he'll be around and about somewhere. Now, this model is not done yet, but I still figured I would at least tease it, since me and Marvin have been waiting for the parts for this guy to come in for what feels like ever, but this Blue Peter model will be my foreign engine, or as most of you guys probably know him, Big City engine. All he's really waiting for at this point is a face, and then he's a go. Unfortunately, they've taken their time getting to us, however, but we're hoping it won't be too much longer now. The bird you're seeing here comes from Bass T-Bone Music on Twitter, and features a new 3D printed face, lights, and sounds, as well as 3-link couplings on either side. I had to buy a whole separate DCC controller just to operate this guy. And for shits and giggles, let's take a look at one of the first times I fired him up. Alright. Wow. Check out these horns. Horn 1. Horn 2. And horn 3. Fucking beautiful. Here we have Bachmann Paxton, and honestly this is a model that I'm not very happy with. I really feel like I could have done better on the weathering, and because of that I'm actually repurposing him into something completely different. So there'll definitely be more to come from him very soon. Or maybe not him, but he'll definitely be helping me make someone new. And probably not who you guys are expecting. So stay on the lookout for that. And with Paxton, that basically wraps up my HOOO Thomas collection, locomotive wise at least. If you want to be technical, I suppose I can include Rheneas in this too, since he's an 009 model, which basically means narrow gauge to HO and OO scale. But for now, that pretty much sums it up. There are still plenty of models that you guys haven't seen yet, and that are currently still in development. But if you want a chance to see these guys early, consider supporting me on Patreon, as that's where I'll be posting work in progress and sneak peek pictures, as well as early reveals and releases of models. So if any of that sounds interesting, I'll have that linked in the description, and hopefully you guys enjoyed taking a look at my HOOO scale Thomas collection, at least as it stands now. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to like and subscribe since there's always more train stuff on the way. And if you'd like to see any more of the collection, be sure to let me know down in the comments. This video was a blast to make and I'd love to make more. I'm sorry it took so long, but hopefully it was worth the wait. And hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next one too. And make sure you remember, train people,
you stay classy.